Well, AOC, and let me know if you believe this, is saying that MAGA Republicans are coming up to her and say, man, I was wrong about Trump. I'm with socialism now. Do you buy that?
Absolutely not. In fact, I'd like to see some of the people who actually said that to AOC and check their ballots and see if they actually voted for President Trump, because I can assure you MAGA Republicans oppose everything that AOC and the modern day Communist Democrat Party stands for. Mass migration and open borders like we saw under the Biden administration.
AOC is now saying that a big group of MAGA voters are suddenly feeling sorry about supporting Trump. She claims they're giving up on him, walking away, and getting ready to support Democrats instead. According to her, these voters are planning to fully stand with the DNC by the time 2028 rolls around.
Men and women's sports is something MAGA Republicans and frankly the whole country rejects. It's a 90-10 issue, taxing people to death and taking their money and giving the majority of your income back to the government. That's a horrible idea that has not worked for thousands of years.
Karoline Leavitt shuts that idea down immediately. She says AOC is completely wrong and didn't hold back at all. In fact, Karoline fired off one of the strongest clapbacks anyone has seen all year.
I fully welcome Trump voters into our coalition. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, but just hear me out. I cannot tell you, it just happened to me like 2 weeks ago. I can't tell you how many times someone pulled me aside and said either I was once a big Trump voter and a Trump supporter, but then I started to kind of expand my world and where I got information. And now I've learned, and now I've changed, and I'm with you.
That was AOC's message when she jumped onto social media. In her version of events, most Trump voters support him for just one reason. She says they sit in front of Fox News all day, soak up talking points, and never think for themselves. In her world, it has nothing to do with money struggles under Biden, rising grocery bills, painful gas prices, or rent that feels impossible to afford. Nope. None of that matters to her. She also brushes off the idea that voters were pushed toward Trump because of the wave of woke policies coming out of the Biden administration, policies many Americans feel don't match real life at all. For AOC, it's all just media brainwashing, plain and simple. But that smug explanation didn't go unnoticed. Karoline Leavitt heard AOC's comments and had no intention of letting them slide. What came next was a sharp response that flipped AOC's story upside down and called out the arrogance behind it.
The president just dealt with Chuck Schumer, and President Trump and Republicans shellacked Chuck Schumer and the entire Democrat Party. After 43 days of Chuck standing out there trying to bravely hold the country hostage and inflict massive pain on the American public, Chuck got absolutely nothing. And now the knives are out for him. As you can see, Jesse, as you just perfectly laid out in your monologue, the Democrat Party is in complete disarray. And the truth is, they have been for 10 years since President Trump came on the political scene.
And honestly, that argument is hard to deny. The DNC has looked shaky ever since Trump announced he was running for president again. From that moment on, everything felt rushed and chaotic, with confusion replacing any clear plan. That helps explain the nonstop accusations thrown at Trump, followed by flashy investigations and courtroom battles that promised shocking revelations, but delivered very little. It also explains the Russia collusion story that dominated headlines for years, a saga many Republicans say never lived up to what Democrats promised. On top of that came the constant insults and mocking labels, as if ridicule could replace a real argument. And yet, through all the scandals, trials, and media storms, nothing ever really sticks. Time and time again, the attacks failed to break Trump's base or slow him down. If anything, they seem to make his support stronger and show just how rattled his critics really are.
They don't stand for anything good. They just stand for Donald Trump is bad. That's the only thing that unifies their party. And now you see how far they are moving to the left. They ran Senator Gillibrand and Senator Manchin out of town. Now they're running Chucky Schumer out of town. It's too bad he turned into a Palestinian. He did it for nothing, like President Trump says, because his own party is turning against him, and the Democrat Party is truly becoming a full-blown communist.
Karoline Leavitt then goes straight at Democratic Party leaders, accusing them of losing control of their own supporters. She says the party has moved so far left that even longtime figures like Chuck Schumer now look out of sync with the activists they once led. In her view, the most extreme voices have taken over. Instead of leaders setting priorities, it's the loudest and most radical activists online and in the streets calling the shots. Karoline argues that Democratic officials are now getting pushed aside in real time because they aren't considered woke enough by their own base. One poorly chosen sentence or one hint of moderation, and they're instantly labeled sellouts or traitors. To her, this constant fighting shows a party tearing itself apart, obsessed with purity tests instead of actually governing. And as Democrats turn on each other, Karoline says voters are watching closely, with many quietly pulling away from a party that no longer seems to know what it stands for.
Men in women's sports is something MAGA Republicans and frankly the whole country rejects. It's a 90-10 issue, taxing people to death and taking their money and giving the majority of your income back to the government. That's a horrible idea that has not worked for thousands of years. MAGA Republicans know it, and that's why they overwhelmingly voted to re-elect President Trump.
Karoline then steps in with sharp focus, completely tearing apart AOC's claim that MAGA voters secretly regret supporting Donald Trump. She doesn't just shrug it off. She demands proof, real names, real numbers, solid evidence. And according to her, none of that exists. Instead of relying on vague stories or social media fantasies, Karoline explains exactly why millions of Americans backed Trump in the first place. It wasn't random. It was a reaction, a pushback against aggressive woke agendas pushed by the DNC that left everyday voters frustrated and confused. Many Americans pushed back against men competing in women's sports, questioned medical transitions for minors, and felt uneasy about the party drifting toward open socialism. Karoline makes it clear that ignoring those concerns won't make them disappear. It only drives more voters away. And if Democrats stay on this path, she warns the consequences could be severe.
MAGA Republicans know it, and that's why they overwhelmingly voted to re-elect President Trump. And a Democrat that you had in your monologue actually was right about one thing. I don't know his name, but I give him credit for his statement where he said that the Republican Party under President Trump is the party of the working man and woman. And because of President Trump's pro-growth, America First policies, he has spoken directly to the hearts of the forgotten men and women across this country. And that's who the Republican Party is today, thanks to him.
Yes, Karoline hits the mark here. And this is the truth Democrats still refuse to face. Trump didn't win by chasing Twitter praise or approval from elites. He spoke directly to middle America, to swing voters, to people who felt ignored, talked down to, and squeezed from every direction. He connected with working-class frustration, people worried about jobs, prices, safety, and stability, using language they actually understood. At the same time, Kamala Harris and the DNC focused almost entirely on coastal elites, corporate donors, and the loudest woke voices online. Instead of talking about kitchen table issues, voters were given lectures, labels, and moral speeches. That gap mattered. When everyday Americans felt dismissed or mocked, Trump made them feel seen and heard, even if they didn't agree with him on everything. In the end, elections aren't won with virtue signaling or polished talking points. They're won by connecting with real people living real lives. And that's where Trump succeeded, and where the DNC fell short.
Well, we'll have to see. And I'm very curious. I'll have to find out from our great Attorney General Pam Bondi if the Trump DOJ is continuing this investigation that the Biden DOJ launched. Jesse, it's a good question, and we will get on that. But as for Gavin Newsom, I was not surprised to see him in Brazil, traveling the world, probably on the taxpayer dime, talking about climate change when his state, California, has some of the highest energy costs in the entire country.
Karoline Leavitt also turns her attention to Gavin Newsom, calling out what she describes as pure political hypocrisy. She criticizes Newsom for constantly talking about saving the planet while running one of the most expensive energy systems in the country. Karoline says it's easy to give climate speeches from a stage while regular families struggle to pay sky-high electricity and gas bills just to keep their homes running. She argues that Newsom's green agenda may sound nice on paper, but it falls apart in real life, especially for working-class Californians who can't afford solar panels, electric cars, or expensive alternatives. Instead of making life greener, she says these policies are making it harder and more expensive to live. Karoline frames it as a classic elite disconnect. Politicians pushing feel-good environmental ideas while everyday people take the financial hit. In her view, Californians aren't rejecting environmental care. They're rejecting leaders who put ideology ahead of affordability and common sense.
They have some of the highest gasoline prices in the entire country, despite President Trump's efforts. And they are working to bring down oil and gas prices in this country, to drill, baby, drill, to unleash American energy dominance. Gavin has done so much damage to his state with the Green New scam and with this utopian pursuit of climate change that is just so false. It's built on a fallacy that he has run up energy costs in his state that people are fleeing his state.
Karoline says the warning signs are everywhere. Families and businesses are leaving California in growing numbers, fed up with high taxes, endless rules, and crushing bureaucracy. For small business owners, every day feels like an uphill battle. Permits, compliance fees, and massive tax bills pile up until staying open no longer makes sense. Meanwhile, Karoline says Newsom seems unconcerned. Instead of easing the pressure or rethinking policies, he doubles down, squeezing businesses even harder in the name of big goals and political image. The result is predictable. Companies move to states with lower taxes, fewer hurdles, and more business-friendly environments. Karoline calls it a clear failure of leadership. Jobs disappear, communities weaken, and tax bases shrink. Yet California's leaders act shocked by outcomes that anyone paying attention could have predicted. At some point, she says, denial stops being leadership and starts looking like indifference.
So maybe we should leave Brazil and stop talking about this issue that is hurting his own people and get back to governing what was once a beautiful state of California that people are fleeing en masse because of his horrific energy and economic policies that have made the cost of living in California completely out of control.
Yeah, the climate scam's kind of like DEI. It's dead, and it's never coming back.
Karoline has basically said out loud what millions of Californians are already thinking. Gavin Newsom needs to stop chasing headlines and start focusing on what actually matters to people in his state. That means taking the high cost of living seriously, the kind that forces families into impossible choices every single month. It means cutting back bloated bureaucracy that slows everything down, raises costs, and crushes small businesses before they can succeed. It also means boosting reliable energy production instead of pushing policies that make power more expensive and less dependable. And most importantly, it means easing the heavy tax burden that keeps driving people and employers out of California. Karoline's message is simple. Leadership isn't about big speeches or national posturing. It's about making life more affordable and stable for everyday people. Until Newsom refocuses on those basics, the exodus will continue and Californians will keep paying the price for stubborn politics. When you look at the bigger picture, the pattern is clear. Democrats like AOC and Gavin Newsom keep offering excuses, slogans, and stories while voters want real results. Karoline Leavitt cuts through the noise. People didn't turn to Trump because of Fox News or misinformation. They did it because life got harder, more expensive, and less stable. The DNC's focus on woke purity tests, high taxes, and ideological battles has left working Americans behind. Instead of listening, party leaders double down and then act shocked when voters walk away. Until Democrats face the real reasons people are frustrated, no amount of spin will stop the backlash already underway. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this.